So an OAM is a medal of the Order of Australia. So we were planning to bring D'banj, a Nigerian artist, to the Nigerian community.
Understanding is like there's a problem that we Africans have, which is the narrative.
Yes.
The narrative that people see us as we're not necessarily doing the right work. Perspective, like what challenges did you have
Well,
when you were
what we did
experiences?
was we created something so special, so unique, so great, so excellent. So I have a lot of people, there are lots of African Australians that are very successful in their fields, but they don't do much in community.
Yes. You don't see them.
And you don't see them.
Exactly.
Because obviously you worked longer hours.
Yes.
You were not present sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, did that affect your family life?
Yeah, look, I have a wonderful wife that has been incredibly supportive from the very start. So the VMC, Victoria Multicultural Commission, is an arm of the Victorian government, and they did that first one. And then we started applying for grants for multicultural festivals and events. That's where we come to apply for grants now, and they ask for letters of support for the grants, we put it there. Only grow in a space where you're comfortable.
So based on that framework, and you're talking about value.
Yes.
Are there any other groups or anything like that that you are a part of that you started after this that you think, hey, because you're talking about value, changing the narrative, opportunities, and I find out I'd love to learn about that as well. So if you just, I know it's a bit of a long question.
Cool. No. Many people from different background, Australian background on the standing community. We welcome anybody that can add value, has passion for AMCF and wants to contribute to the delivery of AMCF. That's standing community, that's what it's for.
So, oh my God, I got this paper due. Yes. Paper due. And I run to my, I graduated from uni 2 years ago.
Fire right now that the whole world doesn't know. What's cooking for you?
From a community point of view, I want to continue to make African music and culture bigger and better. I still want them to do more. I want them to increase that, match the state government, because what we bring to the city of Melbourne in terms of investment, we have people that come all the way from Perth.
Welcome to the Cornerstone podcast. At the Cornerstone podcast, we talk about community events, the things that happen in our community, things that sometimes we overlook but has a huge impact on our society. Most especially, we bring people who have actually achieved success in every area of their lives. Sometimes they have experienced success in their marriages, family. We touch things about relationships. Everything that is the core of our being is discussed here at the Cornerstone podcast. If you have a great story and you want to share your story and you believe that your story has a positive impact on the community at large, please hit us up at mariobo@cornerstone.com. Now, since the Cornerstone podcast is a community podcast, I work with amazing, talented people who have worked hard to make this podcast to become a reality. To my left is an amazing young man. This is a man who is shrewd in everything he does. Before you tell him, I want to get this thing done, you have to explain. He's a man that is, I don't know how to best describe this guy, but he's a tech expert, an amazing young man. Ladies and gentlemen, towards my left we have Mr. Kim. Great honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to go to our lady of today. This lady, she doesn't take anything that has to do with domestic violence lightly. She's a lady who advocates for women, very passionate, beautiful, amazing, strong personality. Ladies and gentlemen, to my right is Miss Eno. Thank you. And now we're going to talk about today's content. But did you know that Australia has a population of just only 27 plus million people? That was a census conducted just recently. And the African population is 447,000 plus people, contributing to 1.68% of the total population of Australia. And many people say that bringing Africans together in Australia is very difficult, as well as the African communities in diaspora. Coming together is very hard because we have different commitments. But there's one man amongst many who has been consistent in delivering the bringing African people together in Australia for 11 consecutive years, and he's an amazing young man. I'm just going to let him introduce himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we want to welcome Mr. Fred Alali to the Cornerstone podcast. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Mary.
Thank you. Mr. Fred, I know you traveled all the way down here, and it was a long, very, very long trip. I believe so.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm
Thank you.
always in spaces where the image and the story of African Australians are being told through our own lenses, through our own experiences, taking control of our own narratives. Any space like that, I'm always there.
Awesome, awesome. So now we want to get to meet you. Who are you? Walk us through who you are and what you represent in our community, please.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Mary. And again, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Fred Alale, AM. I'm the chair of the African Music and Cultural Festival, the AMCF. African Music and Cultural Festival is the largest African festival in Australia, attracting over 50,000 people at Melbourne's Fed Square. We've been going for 11 years now, and throughout that 11 years, we've been non-stop. It's been consistent, delivering and growing bigger and better every single year. My vision for African Music and Cultural Festival is to grow so big that we'll be attracting millions of people to Melbourne's Fed Square, our Melbourne City Centre, CBD, where we will, over the weekends, millions of people will come down there. We'll actually shut down the CBD because everybody's going to the African Festival. I want Qantas, I want Virgin Australia to be setting their schedule way months in advance because African Festival is happening that weekend. They need to put on more flights there. I want to become that largest festival, not just in Melbourne, not just in Australia, in the entire world.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my vision for the African Music and Culture Festival.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just highlight something, right? When you said Fred Alale,
Yes.
you said AM at the
Yes.
end.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a bit more? Just because people probably heard you say that, but might
Yes.
not know what you actually meant by that.
Thank you, Ken. AM stands for, it's a short form, it's a national honor that was granted, that was awarded to me, I think about a year and a half ago. It stands for being a member of the Order of Australia. So it's a national award for excellence that Australia grants to its citizens for outstanding work. And I got one for outstanding contributions to community.
That must have been a huge achievement for you. But how many Africans are in that league where you are right now?
Well, in that league where I am, there's only 3 Africans in total, including myself.
Wow.
I know there is, I think it's a Dr. Krumer in Queensland, and she was the first.
Wow.
I was the first in Victoria, and very recently, Francis Aqua is also being made AM.
And Francis Aqua, is he in Victoria as well?
He's in Victoria. He's in Victoria, and he plays a lot in the mental health space.
Wow.
There have been also a few African Australians that have also got OAMs. Those are, so an OAM is a medal of the Order of Australia.
Wow.
So the ranking goes about 4 levels, and the first level is the Medal of the Order of Australia, and it goes OAM after your name. Then the next level up is the AM, it's a Member of the Order of Australia. And then you got AO, which is the Officer of the Order of Australia. And then finally you get AC, which is Companion of the Order of Australia. So that's the 4 levels of recognition in the general order that Australia gives as part of the Order of Australia.
Okay, now let's.
And there are a few that are in the OAM bucket, maybe about 5 thereabouts. But the good thing about the AM one was once I got it, it was also another. It's like opens the doors for others, so they can see how they can also receive this national award, the work they do, and also for people to nominate people to take the effort to nominate people for this awards. Because since I've also been made a member of the Order of Australia, I've nominated 3 people that are going through the process at the moment. One's also been successful. She's one of my team members, Florence Mawa, on the African Music and Cultural Festival. She's the treasurer, and she's an OAM.
Wow.
And actually, the African Music and Cultural Festival is so lucky to have some outstanding individuals that work with us. On our steering committee members, we've got 4 people that have got Orders of Australia. So we've got Florence Maurer, who is the treasurer. She's an OAM. We've got Sheila Sibanda. She's on the steering committee. She's an OAM. And we've got Gary Lee. He's also OAM on the steering committee. And then we've got me, that's AM. So 4 people working on the African Music and Cultural Festival, which later on, I guess, will go on to how has it been possible? It's the excellence, it's the brilliance, brilliant minds that we bring together to say we're going to deliver a first-class event that everybody, irrespective of whatever background you come from, will be proud of, to create an experience that any Melbourneian, any Victorian, any international visitor will be at Third Square and feel very proud. For them to experience the tastes, the sounds, the rhythm of Africa right in the heart of Melbourne in a brilliant environment and have a great time. That's what we're trying to create.
So that is like mega. I'm like wild right now.
Yeah.
So let's break it down.
Yeah.
Obviously, for you to have climbed that high, you must have faced a whole lot of challenges, right?
Yeah.
But now let's go back to your migration story. Let's talk about let's talk about how you came to Australia, how you knew about Australia, because the truth is, many African people you see in Australia today, we never planned Australia.
Yeah. Okay.
I, for myself, I wanted to go to America. Most people US, London, Europe, and all that. Some people just found themselves in Australia in a way that maybe like through school or through studies, whatever, just found themselves here. So let's talk about your migration. Let's go back to your migration. When you say federally, what part of Africa are you from, and how did you move into the Australian society?
Yeah, okay. So it's been a long journey for me. I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in Nigeria for the first 16 years of my life. And then I moved to the UK.
Yeah, I can get the accent,
yes,
UK accent.
And then we moved to the UK, and that's where I completed my studies and completed university and worked for a while there in the UK before I migrated to Australia. And why did I migrate to Australia? We got married in Hawaii and came on honeymoon to Australia. And it was in Sydney and Cairns. And I remember being in the Sydney harbour side, and my wife, Claire, and I would just watch the world go by, and just felt, wow, this is such a beautiful place. And people seemed relaxed, chilled out. This is the financial centre of Australia, and people were, just sitting on benches and suits with sandwiches and just having a great time. And just thought, my wife said to me, oh, wow, what a great life this is. Do you think we can live here? And I was like, well, I don't know. Let's find out. And I Googled, and accountancy was on the shortage occupation list. Yeah. So I'm a chartered accountant by background. So I applied all by myself, and within 3 months, everything I needed to come over. And at that point, I was working for Ernst & Young in the UK, and I asked a colleague who was an Australian on secondment to the UK to say, what do you guys do in financial performance management in the consulting arm in Australia? What type of work do you do there? And he said, look, send me your CV and I'll have a look and send it to somebody. And he sent that CV to a partner in Melbourne. And the partner in Melbourne looked at my CV there and said, okay, Fred, he replied back to me, he said, when you're around, we'd like to have a chat and meet up with you. We had to do a recce of Australia soon after that, after being granted the visa. So we met up with the partner and for coffee, and after the end of the coffee was like, so Fred, when would you like to start? Essentially, and I was like, okay, well, actually, we're not actually sure we want to come to Australia anymore, because at that time then we had a 9-month-old baby, and there were family ties to the UK, and we're like, oh well, we'll see how it goes. A bit unsure. We didn't know anybody in Australia, and it just okay, fine. Let's keep in touch, and we'll see how it goes. And 9 months later, we kept in touch, and 9 months later, sent me an email and said, Fred, are you still thinking about coming to Australia, because this will be a good time? And that was the push we needed. Send an email to my wife and say, hey, Mark sent us this email. What do you think? And I was like, yep, press the bell, press the button, and we moved over. So, but I realized that my journey to Australia is not typical of most Australians. Yes. I know I had a privilege there because I worked with a Big Four accounting firm and global accounting firm, and I could almost transition to Australian workforce almost. I had my contract sent to me before I left the UK. And I know that's not the experience of most African Australians. Yeah. And so I also recognize that, I've also had, some privileges in the past. Having said that, I always took opportunities that were given to me and made the most of those opportunities and worked hard in whatever I did. I mean, later on in this podcast, I'll tell you through a personal framework called Vento, which is something that I feel has guided me all through and continues to guide me. Vento is V for vision, always having a vision for yourself. E is for excellence. Excellence is in what you do. Whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well. N is for networking. Your network is your net worth. Always invest in your network. T is for tenacity, never giving up and always striving for the best. And also O at the end is for opportunities. People have opportunities that come to them, and some people don't take those opportunities. And yeah, that's my Vento model around when opportunities present themselves, take those opportunities and make the most of it. And so that's my Vento model. So that's my story to Australia. And I came to Australia and I landed in Melbourne because that was where the job was. And then how did I go into community, from my professional life into community? A colleague came to me and said, hey, at Fed Square, there is a Nigerian event there. Aren't you Nigerian? I think they're doing some display of cultural artifacts in a small area of Fed Square. And it's happening there. And I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. And I went there. And I met the president of the Nigerian Society of Victoria, then Dr. Razak Balogun. And he said, oh, this was what they were doing, just showcasing Nigerian artifacts, etc. And he was like, we've got Independence Day coming up. You're invited, come along. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll come to that. 2 weeks later, we had the Independence Day celebration of the Nigerian Society of Victoria. And this was, wow, I never knew there were so many Nigerians in Melbourne. It's like, wow, we're everywhere. And as the day was going on, I didn't feel things were going as planned, and things were not quite as organized. And when it came to food service, it was just chaotic. And I was like, wow, I'm disappointed in that why, these are people of, lots of professionals. Nigerians are professionals here, and when they work, they do things to the standards, etc. Yes. Why don't we bring this to the community that we do, to put this organization in doing things too? And I actually stood up and went to the kitchen, then got a trolley, organized the food, and I said to my wife, sorry, I just need to go there and see what I can do. And got a trolley and organized the food with people, so I could come with me then, and so on. And I was pushing the trolley and serving people and getting things done throughout there. And so I rolled my sleeves up, and rather than sitting down there complaining to say, hey, Nigerians were always this and that, like some people were doing that, I was like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to fix it, or I'll try and make things better. So I pushed, and we served, and things then started flowing there. And then I made up my mind that, okay, I'm going to get involved in the community and help plan, bring my project management skill set, because I was from a consulting background, management consulting background, bring my project management skill set into the community to help lift the standards of that community. And that's how I joined and I started as the treasurer of the Nigerian Society of Victoria, and then later on became the president of the Nigerian Society.
We're gonna touch that one because when you said Nigeria, I was like, I knew you were the president. That was from 20.
It was from
2014 to 2018.
To 2018.
18,
4 years.
4 years.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, before we get into that area, I'd like to ask you a question. You thought about the idea of the festival, right? But how did you create that idea?
How did the idea come out? Okay. Now, it's also even linked to my service with the Nigerian Society of Victoria. So I was a treasurer then, and the president, Ike Nwankolo, was the president. And we were planning to bring D'banj, a Nigerian artist, to the Nigerian community. So we went to meet the Victoria Multicultural Commissioner and said, hey, come and help us. It was going to cost $50,000 to bring him there. I said, come and help us fund it to bring the Nigerian artist, because he will cut across all African communities. He's very popular. People will come and watch him there. And he looked at us and laughed and said, nah. And I was like, well, I said, well, because I'm not going to spend $50,000 on just one community. He said, one, you guys are relatively small in Victoria. Two, you don't cause any problems. You're not on our radar. and that, no, there's no way you can justify investing $50,000 in the community. But he now said to us, he said, but if there was something, because I gave them background about Nigerians, the fact that 20% of Nigerians in Melbourne were doctors or had a doctorate, and I had these numbers because as a treasurer I would call people to chase them up for membership. So I knew, and not only did I chase them to get their names, I'll get their occupations, etc. I was building a database and building a picture of what the community looked like, and that was the best way to leverage the strength of the community. Unlike when we took over and there was less than 254 people on the register, and they were just emails. Now I had first name, last name, occupation, mobiles, and could get this information as I met people or as I called them to chase them up for their membership. So anyway, so with Chintan, the chair of the Victoria Multicultural Commission then said, look, if there was something you guys can do and bring the experience and expertise of the Nigerian community to help lift the standards of the African community. And he used this word there that actually got us fired up. He said, because in his opinion, all these events, African events he's attended, has never been well organized. It's always been disorganized, start late, not well run. And in his opinion, he felt the African community lacked capacity. And we thought, oh, wow, okay. And so we left his office fired up with that word, lacking capacity. And I said, this is me. I worked for a Big Four consulting firm then. And I knew a lot of other professionals. This was Ike, who was like the senior lawyer principal at Slayton Gordon. He's been there for years. I knew lots of professionals there, but I just knew but he wasn't seeing this. All he could just see is us not delivering things properly and not delivering events properly. And we thought, gosh, we're going to show you we've got capacity. And then, so what can we do to actually bring the African communities together, to confound that image of African communities as people that don't either have that capacity, to showcase the best of African Australians to the wider Victorian community? What can we do? And so I was talking with Ike about that. Damn, we're still feeling very something about that he wasn't going to help with the badge, and two, that, we lack capacity. And he said, well, maybe we should do like a cultural music festival. And that can really bring Victorians together. Something that's easy for the wider Victorian community to engage with. And it's non-threatening, it's enlightening, and it's something that we can readily harness within the community here. Our culture, heritage, that's what we are. And so that was the first time the thought of the African Music and Cultural Festival came to light with Ike. And then we left it there for a while. Ike passed the hot baton to me. He resigned as the president, and I became the president of the Nigerian Society of Victoria. And I had a new vice chair there. His name was Uche Njoku.
Okay.
And I shared this vision with Uche Njoku to say, hey, look, we had this idea about an African Music and Culture Festival, bring the community together, working with professionals in the African community, doing a first-class event, well planned, well delivered, well executed, that will also put us on the map while showcasing our culture and heritage and taking control of our own narrative. And Uche loved that. And he pondered on it for another 2-3 months. And then he called me one night and said, Fred, you've been talking about this dream, this vision you had. It's high time we make it reality. And he was the one that's like, okay, let's put pen to paper. What are the next steps? What do we need to do? What do we need to do to make this happen? Let's brainstorm it. So it was Uche that actually pushed me to say, okay, let's take that next step, to take this concept and a vision and idea into reality. And that's why I say we've got co-founders of being Uche Njoku and Ike Nwokolo, who was the initial brainstorm person that we came up with the concept, and Uche that actually helped make it happen and pushed me to say, let's put pen to paper. Then, so through that conversation with Uche, we went back to the Victoria Multicultural Commission and gave them that, we're going to do an African Music and Culture Festival. We're going to bring over 35 African communities together. We're going to showcase through music, arts and food, our culture and heritage right in the heart of Fair Square. The guy looked at me and he was like, really? You think you can do that? I said, yes, we can. This is what we're going to do. This is the concept and so on in there. And he was like, okay, if you say you can deliver what you said, I will back you and put the first 10,000 into the African Music and Culture Festival.
Wow.
And that's how, on the first year, that was a seed that we needed. And the event in the first year cost 32,000 to deliver actually I know it's so imprinted in my mind, $32,154 it cost to deliver that event in there, and 10,000 of it came to the Victoria Multicultural Commission. And if they hadn't given us that backing, we wouldn't have been able to make that step and the confidence to go through. Then there were other ones that came in for us. Slayton Gordon was a company that Ike Nwokolo worked for, the former president. We brought him on board again to say, hey, come on to join the African Music and Culture Festival. And because of that, he also got his firm, Slayton Gordon, to sponsor. So they've been a foundation sponsor, been here for the whole 11 years of the festival without fail, always there. And so Slayton Gordon came on board. Then Victoria Police also came on board as sponsors, and for the first time, and then so that got us about 20 of that 32,000, and the remaining was some small vendor sponsors here and there, and just relationship that building with other people and building. Say, hey, sell the concept that we're going to do this, we're going to make this happen. I remember when the VMC chair came to that first event. Actually, before he came in, 3 days before, when we were sending the emails out to say this event is going to happen, he called me, Fred. He said, Fred, is it really going to happen? I said, yeah, it's 3 days time. Booked everything at Fair Square. He said, you're sure it's going to happen? I said, yep, it is going to happen, and I'll see you there in 3 days time. And then when he came to the festival on that day, I remember his face. He was like so positively surprised. He was just staring and looking around right in the heart of Melbourne, us there showcasing our culture, our heritage. Everybody's happy, everybody's having a great time. Music, dance, foods, all over there. And he was just blown away by that. And that was the start, that was the ignition. And we've now grown from being that 32,000 event that cost 32,000 almost 11 years ago, with less than 5,000 in the first year, to now attracting, and only on one day of the event, to now 1 day over 6 hours, to now growing to an event that's 3 days, attracts 50,000 people, and costs over $370,000 to deliver. And actually, I wouldn't say 370,000 is actually conservative, because we get concessions from Fed Square. The value of the concession from Fed Square alone, in terms of the venue that we use and they don't charge us for, is 125,000. So if I add that,
that's over
to the thing, that's over half a million that it costs. Because if you're a commercial entity, you would have to pay that higher. So it's an event that's now costing almost $500,000, to deliver. And we've grown from strength to strength. Now, 3 days event, from one day, 6 hours to the minimum hours we do in a day now is 8 hours on the last day, and that's because it's a Sunday, it's a school night. We finish earlier, but we got 12 hours on Saturday, 10 hours on Friday, and we've now started with less than 3 vendors in the first year, 3 food vendors that I had to pull and cajole, kicking and screaming to come and showcase that, to now this festival that we're going to be having on Friday 15, from Friday 15 to Sunday 17th of November at Federation Square again. Now we've got over food vendors alone. We've got 30 food vendors.
Yeah, I saw one of the vendors writing you on your stuff and saying, Mr. Fred, I was just looking through your comments. Mr. Fred, please get in touch with me. So do you get a whole lot of people attracted to you?
We got a whole lot of people now. We've changed from having to beg people to come and become part of that festival to people now beforehand. Please, I want to be a part of it. And actually, we having to push back on certain, because we want to keep the African ethos. So there's also other vendors that you need to have a link to African festival. If you go into the African Music and Culture Festival, I think people have certain expectations. So in the offering there needs to be African when it comes to food. We do, however, have like Brazilian and Colombian, and the reason is because of the link,
between
the slave trade and African heritage and the food they do that's quite similar. And we do have one Brazilian, one Colombian, because of that heritage and diaspora population that's there. Otherwise it will be an African, and then we also have a dessert that's just general, because just for sweets. But otherwise you get there and you can, that's why we say you come to the African Music and Cultural Festival and you can get to taste the tastes, the sound, the rhythm of Africa right in the heart of Melbourne.
Now, Mr. Fred, I'll ask you a question. You said bringing African people, and that was a big event. Obviously, how did you manage pulling that crowd, bringing African people to actually come out of their houses? Because some of us, we do like 2 jobs. And let's say, for instance, it's a Saturday. You know how the rates are in Australia. We get that extra rates when we work. So
absolutely.
How are you able to make people get off their houses? Take a shower, drive all the way, on the highway straight to Square. How did you bring Africans together?
Look, I think it was because we created an event that Africans were so proud of, or are so proud of.
Yes.
When you go to the African Music and Cultural Festival, right at Fed Square, this is a premium location. Premium location
in Melbourne.
In Melbourne.
Yes.
Right there. And it's huge, it's massive. And we take over that for 3 days.
Yes.
And we showcase the cultures and the heritage, and why the Victorians are engaging and enjoying themselves and taking control of that narrative. For a lot of Victorians, especially non-Africans, the first thing they actually know about other Africans might not be positive, not usually positive. It's what they've heard through the media. And usually focused on one particular African communities. But that's that negative thing that they know about us. But they come here and you can come and taste Sudanese food. You can come and taste food from Uganda, East African food, North African food, West African food, South African food. Food is a common, it's actually
a soul of community.
A soul of community. It's a great uniter. And Melbournians also love their food.
For sure.
They're foodies. They like to explore and try new things. And that's also educating them about African culture, about African foods, and breaking down those barriers to cultural understanding and tolerance, and making them look at us as Africans
in a different light. I love that.
And everything works as it should. We have a schedule, and it starts on that schedule. There is no African time. We start it, we go, and again, it's also building the capacity of ourselves too. We have food vendors that started with us 11 years ago,
and still
now they're here. Not only are they just here with us, that's not even big. They've gone so big. They've actually started restaurants. Zuya
Yes.
was the first guy that
I've actually seen Zuya at Gracelands.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
He's got one in Graceland.
When I saw him, I'm like, I remember you from the festival.
Yep, Graceland, and also another one in Caroline Springs now.
Was Zuya's there
And
as
he
well?
started with us.
Oh, okay.
He started with us. He started in his backyard doing things with friends and started at a festival and it's grown. And so now he's now multiple restaurants and being very successful. And he's actually now a sponsor of the African music and culture.
Wow.
Thanks to the opportunity that was given to them. There's something you mentioned before that I love. When you first went to the VMC chair to go talk to him, right?
Yes.
Because the thing is, my understanding is like there's a problem that we Africans have, which is the narrative.
Yes.
The narrative that people see us as we're not necessarily doing the right work.
Yes.
He mentioned, he said that, we don't have the capacity to do it. I don't know, this Ike Nwokolo guy seems like a really fascinating person, you know?
Yes.
And for him to have the idea, because one thing I think we need to do as African Australians or even Africans is change the narrative of how people see us.
Yeah,
this whole African time, you go apply for a job, you start doing prayers beforehand, you don't really prepare all this stuff. We need to change that, and I think that's what you did. That's a powerful story. I think a lot of Africans come here, right, and they say, oh my God, what is there to? Who do I look up to? Who do I look up to? What do I do? But they need to hear powerful stories. Like
people who have started, people who came, and you've done it from scratch, and you face challenges like you're talking about one of the leaders telling you, is it possible like for them to like the African people were not organized? That was a statement. So when he told you that, because I believe many African people have got visions to do like big things, but then they have that little discouragement, and then they back off. So when he told you that, what happened inside of you? Did that push you further to make it happen, or did that discourage you?
That pushed me. That was the thing in my head. You lack capacity. And so now, we'll show you we've got capacity. Because I walked in circles of Africans that were successful in different walks of life. Ike that I was with there was one I looked very much up to. He was a top lawyer in a top law firm in there. It was not a small gig. And there were many other people in those circles that were achieving a lot of things, but the stories weren't being told, or they weren't being seen. And and it's only the negative narrative that the media was saying there. And that's why with AMCF we said we're going to do a first class event. That was like, so the capacity we built in our food vendors. But what about artists too? Artists that will say, okay, that you're performing at this time, we communicate all that to them, we get their specs. Some of the artists that would not give their performance specs beforehand, we coach them and work with them and say, hey, the deadlines and so on, actively working with them and so on to do that. And I also tell them you need to be at the event 1 hour before your event, your performance. So for the first year, we had people that didn't turn up until 1 or 2 hours after there's something. But what we did, we just moved past the event and gave the person performance more time, a bit more DJ time. We scrapped it. We didn't give them that. You're gone. Your opportunity is gone.
So you were shrewd, very shrewd.
We were very strict with it. So they learned that for first year. Come the second year, anyone on our schedule, they did not miss it anymore. We did have the odd ones here and there, but again, with the odd ones, you miss your time, you're not there, you're not ready to go on that time, we move on to the next thing. It's the excellence in which we wouldn't say, this is an African thing. And so, no, we did it high. And then the discipline that they also learned when they now go to bigger stages, or more professional stages, they now know how to operate in those bigger stages. And we've got people that have then gone to bigger things. People like Simba Mac that's been performing at other bigger things. So, and many other artists that perform on bigger stages now because they've learned the rigor of what it takes to be a professional.
Yes, being punctual on time.
Being punctual and on time and not being late in things you do.
The African time stuff doesn't really work.
I don't agree with that. Fred, what I think you've done right is, I don't think maybe people might understand the context of what you've actually accomplished. You changed the narrative. You created opportunities for not just African musicians, not just African food vendors, not just African dancers, not just other people too that want to do art, even people that do painting, sculpture. I've seen all of them go and they have an opportunity and a place. Now, one question I'm actually wondering is, like, as you were alluding to, right? Africans, don't get me wrong, we are fantastic people, but managing us sometimes can be a very hard.
That's true.
Just from your perspective, like, what challenges did you have?
Well,
with your
what we
experiences?
did was we created something so special, so unique, so great, so excellent, that we couldn't be ignored.
Yes.
And when they got there themselves, they were very proud to be a part of it. But then not only that, African Music and Cultural Festival is not just for Africans. We created it to change the narrative for the wider Victorians to come and experience us.
Yes.
Most of our attendees, I would say maybe about 50 to 55 are the ones that are mostly Africans that attended. The rest, 45 to 50, normal white, wider community Australians. And that's what we want.
Yes.
Because that's how we change that narrative and the experience and the view of African Australians. And I also say to my traders, and I was like, you need to, for example, the standards, when they're displaying the products, you need to be very clear, label your product, have a picture of the food and the pricing, because I can tell them a lot of people that come here and where you make your money are people that have never tasted your foods before. You can't rely on people from your own community. If you're Cameroonian and say, oh, my Cameroonian people will come. No, they would, because as you said, most of them on that Saturday will be chasing shifts and overtime on Saturday or Sunday.
Correct.
And so on. They might not come or they come very late and so on. But it's the wider Victorian community or others that want to try something new. And they do that. So they need to label it properly that people can engage. So again, it's something so excellent that the wider Victorian community get behind it. And they love it and they experience it and they be a part of it and they like coming. We had stories of, just recently somebody wrote to us and said, oh, look, I'm coming from Adelaide. I've heard about your festival. My background, one part of my background is Zimbabwean and Australian background. And I just love what you guys do and I can't wait to come and be a part of it. How can I be more part of you? Because I want to tap into that. When we did a previous event too, there was this young girl that just turned 16 and she said, I've never missed an AMC. My mom brought me here every time. My dad's Ghanaian. I don't really know him as much, but when I'm here, I just feel that sense of belonging and amazement about what Africans and being an African. I had another mother write to us and said they went there with their 6-year-old and he had a blast. He said they bought some artifacts, some bangles from some African shops there. And she said, whilst they were at the festival, the child, 6-year-old, looked at the mother and said, Mom, now you're the odd one out at the festival. But he apparently went to bed and did not want to take the bracelets off. I wanted to go to bed. I went to bed with it, did not want to take it off. And she had to write that to us to say what we are creating of African Australians. For me too, the last year we did when we're 10 years, something resonated with me so strongly in that 10 years too. A lot of people for the first time just came to me and was saying, Fred, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was the first time I really heard that a lot. I had people, oh, this is great, this is amazing, and so on. But
the appreciation.
Just the appreciation. To say 10 years, right in the heart of Fair Square, and to see all the activity going on, the drumming, the foods, the stage performance, and just the crowd, everybody, and the vibe in the atmosphere. You cannot but be happy when you come to the African music and culture. It's so infectious. The happiness is so infectious. You come there and it changes whatever it is. It changes your mood. And if you're also an African Australian, you come there and you feel a sense of pride. That even if you've not been part of that organizing thing, that we are doing this.
Something, in the heart of Melbourne. The prime, I think that's one of the top locations in Melbourne right now.
It is.
It's the top. It's probably the top.
It is the top.
Outdoor events.
Outdoor events for events. Open outdoor event. We grew from being one of the smallest festivals at Fair Square, where at the end of our fair, we're planning the event and we say, hey, we're looking towards next year and maybe what dates do you think we can book? And Fair goes, well, let's just cross this bridge first. To now where Fair Square booking our dates 3 years in advance.
Wow. 3 years in advance.
3 years in advance.
It's that popular that
we locked it in 3 years, this date, the last year, and the next one is already locked in their diaries. They already know. Fed Square. And so different, and we've now become their largest festival at Fed Square.
Wow.
Then when we used to look at Diwali is big, 1 day festival, because we do over 3 days. We get that crowd over that 3 days. We used to have a Mexican festival, where the other ones that were also very big then, we're now overshot the Mexican festival. We've got, right now, we're trying to split the cost between us and I think it's a Mexican festival the week before ours. But we're still taking up more costs because we've got far more marquees than the Mexican festival in the food and the general stores. We've gone from, as I said, 3 food vendors now to 30 food vendors that are there at the River Terrace. We've gone from the general stores on the upstairs where we had about 7, 8 general stores now. This time again, we've got 29 general stores in the top. And even as coming here, there are still people telling me, can I still have a store? Can I still have a store? And I'm like, maybe it's too late. We don't want that anymore. Because again, we want to be planned. We've already got the schedule. We don't want last minute changes. Excellence in execution. I said, next year. Come next year, plan next year, and so on to it. So that's where we've been.
So, I have a question. I know you've talked about everything that you have done and what the community have done, which is really aspiring.
Yeah.
So, I know that there are young Africans or Africans that just came into Australia. Many of them are aspiring to be big. Some of them are even thinking of doing big things, but they don't know where to start from.
Yeah.
So what would you advise the young generations or Africans, other Africans that are coming into Melbourne, how to leave their comfort zone, how to also change the narrative in whatever they can do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Look, I think there are lots of opportunity for young African Australians to really make a difference.
Yeah.
But I think they just need to get involved. Look beyond. It's almost when I was talking about my story earlier on about even when I was in university planning, to say what would happen when I leave university. Actually, it was actually a different conversation that it wasn't on this podcast. I was just before we started the podcast, I was speaking to Zero about my history and my story, about how I navigated university and got into a big 4 firm, etc. And look, what I would say to young Australians is get involved in community.
Yeah.
It's not just academics that determine your success. It's also what else is there to you.
Street knowledge. We call it street knowledge.
Street knowledge.
Gen Z. That's the Gen Z term. Street knowledge.
Absolutely. And also, what else are you giving back to community? Yeah. So I have a lot of people. There are lots of African Australians that are very successful in their fields, but they don't do much in community.
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't see them.
And you don't see them.
Exactly.
I've got somebody at work. I'm a director level at work. There's one other African Australian that's an executive director. She's the most senior African Australian in the Victoria Public Service.
Wow.
I don't know, possibly. There was I think Auditor General in Queensland. I think in Queensland or New South Wales, very recently appointed. So that's a very senior person. But she does brilliantly, amazing individual, very something, but she doesn't do much in community. And she herself would tell me that, look, I see you do a lot of all those things, and maybe I want to do some more in community. So, but I guess my driving force is, for me, it's not how many doors that open up to me or how many doors I can go through that determines success. It's how many people I can bring through those doors with me. It's how many more opportunities I can create for others that would not have had that opportunities before. So I implore all African Australians, especially those that are successful in their field, to see what else can they do for others? How can they be mentors, coaches, and create more opportunities for people that don't have those opportunities that they do?
So, Mr. Fred, you were saying something about you moved to Australia with your wife and all that. But I'm sure when you started the African the African Music and Cultural Festival. I'm very sure that must have impacted on your family because obviously you worked longer hours.
Yes.
You were not present sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, did that affect your family life?
Yeah, look, I have a wonderful wife that has been incredibly supportive and very patient. And I guess she also sees that whilst other people maybe might get a thrill out of maybe going out and drinking and doing a few other things, I actually enjoy it when I'm with community and doing something with community. I'm making a difference in community. And so she knows it's important to me, and it also makes me happy. So I think she's been very understanding with things. But there's been times when, especially with the Nigerian Society of Victoria, that I felt it was very all-consuming. I would have phone calls literally to midnight from people from very early in the morning, and people with different issues, etc. It was very demanding, and that was constant throughout the entire year. AMCF, my phone calls start a lot as events within 2 months to 1 month of the event. Then it starts being a bit, quite a lot. But even that, I've got team members that are very competent in different areas, and they take over things like, I've got a wonderful production director, Amanda Green, who handles all the artists, so no artists call me for anything because they deal with her. She does all that. I've got an operations manager, Mustafa Barry, and he does all the stalls and general stalls. So yes, I talk to Mustafa every day and so on, but it's not direct stall holders calling me, although I still have odd ones in there, but it's not quite as all consuming that compared to, say, the Nigerian Society of Victoria at the start, which did have, I remember times when my wife did have conversations with me around, hey, maybe you need to spend some more time at home and trying to find a better balance with things.
Your wife is not Nigerian, I guess.
No, she's of British heritage.
She's British.
Yes. Yeah.
That's very interesting because she gave you the full support, knowing that she's from a different cultural background.
Yes, she did. And I guess she's always known with me, it's always been, she knows I'm passionate about also giving back and doing things for others, especially where I've got the opportunity to do that. I do it and I enjoy doing it.
There's one thing that a lot of people who have done like events, African events, always experience is when they do like parties or like clubs and people turn up.
Yeah.
They're fights.
Yeah.
Fights mostly. Fights happen. Like this it has maybe turned a lot of people off doing community events.
Yeah.
And now you pulled out such a large, your crowd is so large, and you're in the heart of Melbourne itself, in the Fed Square, like that is. How have you ever had any experience with conflict? And did you ever maybe not fighting? Did you experience anything like that? How did you manage that?
In the entire history of the African Music and Cultural Festival, we've had 0 incidents of conflict.
Wow.
0.
What would you possibly attribute that to? Would it be just execution, people that are coming, or just people want to come and enjoy themselves?
Well, I think people come to the African Music and Cultural Festival, and as I think I mentioned before, it's just there's a general infectious happiness and positivity in that space. It's like foods from different cultures.
Yeah.
It's like music from different cultures. It's like drumming from different cultures. It's a happy, happy place. Oases of happiness and joy.
Yes.
Right in the heart of Melbourne. And then we also have things in place in terms of we've got security people there.
Yeah.
Victoria Police is also always present there because they're usually because they're also sponsors of the event, founding sponsor. They have stalls there, and they have like a police car stall, and even in the main area there for families to come in and have a ride and check out a police car and so on as a public relation things for them. So there's also the presence of them there in the community. So, but look, we've never had an incident or people say fighting or things breaking out at the festival. It's just been a pure space for people's enjoyment and fun together in a happy space.
Yeah. So talking about sponsors, you mentioned at the beginning that you went to what did you say?
Victoria Multicultural Commission. Yeah.
And then you asked for a particular amount of money and you were rejected. So during this festival, like all these years, have you been able to receive any kind of support from the government, the Prime Minister over the years?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that brilliant question. Look, the Victorian government have been an invaluable support to the African Music and Cultural Festival from the very start. So VMC, Victoria Multicultural Commission, is an arm of the Victorian government, and they did that first one. And then we started applying for grants for multicultural festivals and events, and from the Victorian government directly. And every single year, up till the 9th year, we've always been successful for the African Music and Cultural Festival without fail. But usually been on a smaller amount, 10,000 to 20,000. Actually, at one point they went to almost 30, 40,000 even. And I think actually one year was 50,000. It gave us everything we asked for, the maximum amount. So the Victorian government has been a staple. But they came up big time when it came to the last election, where because of the pattern that we've seen, and we've been successful with all the grants all these years, and we're in events that we deliver what we say we will do. That's the other thing I say with my team. And I was like, if we can't deliver it, we will not promise we will do it.
That's it.
We're not one of those people that say, just say anything and say we'll do something and then figure out, maybe how we're going to do it. No. If we don't have a pathway to deliver on our promises, deliver on what we say we'll do, we're not going to say we won't go down that road at all. So that's why a lot of our sponsors always coming back, because we deliver for them. They know us, we're known quantity, and we don't overpromise, we over-deliver actually on everything that we do for them. Now, my job is to translate that into the Commonwealth. And I'm actively working with the networks of those Commonwealth governments now to say that, Victorian government is seeing us and we're doing this. And I want you, Commonwealth, to also come in and back us and do that, a similar thing, and actively working to do that. And we've got the Attorney General. He's going to be a VIP. He's confirmed he's attending this time, representing the Prime Minister, who, by the way, we also received letters of support for, and we've received letters of support.
You said something about that being on the website. Yeah.
4 years now, we've received letters of support from the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister of this land, recognizing African Music and Culture Festival as a cultural
icon.
Yes.
It's really good. Really, have the confidence. But can I ask you, Mr. Fred, how does this make you feel? How does it make you feel?
Wow.
Because if I was that, man, I'm telling you, man, I would be like.
I remember the first letter we had from the Prime Minister that was actually under Scott Morrison 4 years ago. It was 4 years ago, the first one. Scott Morrison and it was a Liberal government, and he wrote that to us about our festival. And that was amazing. And I was over the moon, because for me, I thought, wow, we've arrived. And therefore, to get that recognition from the number one citizen of this country, the Prime Minister of our festival, it blew me away. We always receive from the Premier every year. From the start, the Premier always wrote us letters of support every year. But to get it from the Prime Minister was just amazing.
That's curious though. Like, what does that letter of support translate into? Does it open doors, or is it just, hey, we support you? I'm just curious though. Like, what does that translate?
That letter of support does open doors, because when we come to apply for grants now, and they ask for letters of support for the grants, we put it there. this is a letter of support from the Prime Minister talking about the festival. So whoever's assessing that grant, if the Prime Minister, if the Premier is writing saying this one is something,
yes,
we take that box.
And then when you have the Prime Minister and the Premier both writing, who are you waiting to say no?
There we go. So that helps in that. So it translates to that. But then I'm trying to also work the system and use the system to even use that letter of support to further bargain with the respective ministers, like the Minister for Immigration Affairs and Home Affairs, Minister Tony Burke, to say, hey, come and see us, African Music and Cultural Festival, that we're unique, we're special. We're bringing together over 35 African countries to the table and to celebrate multiculturalism. We're doing something very unique, and we want to feel seen by the federal government too, just like the state government is just seen by that significant commitment. So I've written to him, and I've also written to the Assistant Minister for Multicultural Affairs, Julian Hill, who happens to be the member for Bruce, which is also encompasses Dandenong, part of Dandenong area, which has got a high number of African Australians in that electorate. I'm trying to invite him to come to the festival, to have those strategic conversations that when they're thinking about the next election, to say, hey, this is a way to show to the African Australian communities, we see you, we support you, we back you too, and take a leaf out of Victorian government. So again, this is a strategic context that I also have for the festival, to think ahead, to say, how do we secure some long-term funding from the government? And at the same time, we're also having the same conversation with the opposition in Victoria. We've got a good relationship too with the leader of the opposition, John Pasuto, and pointed out the Victorian government has done that, and
it's time for them to support too.
If there's anything, well, they can't support now because they're not in government. But if there's any potential, if there's any change in government, especially after the 2 years and it comes for renewal, if we're there to be any change in government, I'm also confident that that's something they would be looking to do. But I'm going to get him to announce that formally, and so he can put it on record and so on. But those are the other things that we do with African music. It's not just do the event; it's also about knowing how to work within the system and leverage the system to make the system work for you. Learning about the system, how it works, and not just giving up, saying, oh, nobody cares about us, or we do this, or because of that. No, because there are ways in which you go about really making change and making change happen.
I believe that Africans in Australia, we've not really told our story. And I believe that we have a lot more to share, but not many people have that patience to build what you've done. But now, what I want to ask you, Mr. Fred, and you've done this for 11 years. Okay.
Tenacity.
Yes.
So that was the end of Tenacity. Bento, there's the
opportunity.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Please.
No worries, sorry. So that O is of opportunities, taking opportunities that come your way. Some people, I would say, look a gift horse in the mouth. The opportunities come knocking and they don't take it, either because they're scared or or they just don't know, or they operate in their comfort zone. You only grow in a space when you're uncomfortable. When you're doing things and you don't have to think about it and so on, you're not in a growth mode. Growth actually happens when you're uncomfortable. When you challenge yourself to big, audacious goals and objectives and challenges, and it's like, oof, how am I made to make that happen? Or how am I going to do this? And that you're learning new things and developing. So take opportunities. One of the mentors I have, Andrew Crisp, he said to me, I said, how were you successful, big senior executive? He said to me, it's like, when I was given opportunities to be on secondments or take some other roles and so on, I took these things, and that helped me build my network, build understanding of other government areas, and knowledge that he's been able to bring to his role and his job again, and build a reputation because people now knew him across different areas. And so when there were opportunities that came in, people knew him and he got those opportunities. So that stuck in my mind around taking those opportunities. So that's the venture model: vision, excellence in what you do, networking, tenacity, and opportunity.
I like the opportunity part.
Very
Australia is a country with a whole lot of opportunities out there. Many people, Australia is broad. Like in whatever you do, Australia gives you that chance to grow. That's one beautiful part about Australia. But we don't get that in many westernized countries. Australia is very, very open to growth. But what I want to ask you, Mr. Fred, is you've done this for 11 years. 11 whole years.
Yeah.
The main thing I want to know is, are the people that started with you, are they still the people with you? Or did you have fallouts along the way when you started? Did you have that, when, people don't want to be part of a vision anymore, then they go about and start spoiling your name and, Mr. Fred is this. It's something very, very common in the African community. Now, walk us through that and also tell us how you overcame that.
Yeah. So, when it comes to the core team of people that started with me, I think we still have those core team of people still around today.
Wow, 11 years going.
11 years going.
Wow, goodness.
And that's because we've even had one or two that have come and that have gone and come back. And I just say they took a sabbatical. Because also circumstances happen in people's lives and so on, and so they go away, and when things settle down they come back and so on. So the way AMCF operates, we've got this core team of the board members. Usually those people, our board is relatively stable, and we've had one or two coming in and out, but there are critical people like Uche Njoku, who is like the co-founder. He's always been there. He's the vice chair. He's been there from the very start, and he's still the vice chair and still making things happen. Ike Nwokolo, one of our executive members of the board there, again, co-founders, he's always been there. Then we've got the production director, Amanda. She started as a youth director with the youth, where she was in university. And then the production director went to the sabbatical. She took on that production director role, did a brilliant job of it, and she's been that production director ever since. Then the former production director that came when I was on sabbatical came back, and then we welcomed her to that. You got something to add, and so I think that we've got Pony Tong, our secretary and our MC. She's also been there almost for the first from the start. We've also got a few other core team members too, like Yusuf Abubakar. He's also always been there, website manager. Who else would be the Florence Mauer as our treasurer, chartered accountant, senior executive at Telstra, and she's been our treasurer all from the very start too. So brilliant-minded people, professionals in their own walks. And then we have some other core team members that have also been there. Like we've also got people that have come along in the last 5 years, like Ryan, he's another guy from South Africa. And just people that are passionate, but the underlying things they're passionate about, and they absolutely love AMCF, and they love what we've created and what we've become, and they very invested in the success of that organization. And we've kept that stable. And then we've got steering committee members that come from over 35, 36 African communities. They can come and go in there depending on their capacity and what they do is help make sure that the event is current, is representative of the communities. If we need more food stalls from certain countries that we're missing, they're the ones that help go to that community, identify those food stalls or performances from a particular community, give us that intel to bring it so that we can continue to show the tapestry of Africa, the best of Africa on show every time. That's what the steering committee is for. And that can get renewed from time to time, people coming in and go, depending on what. But when it comes to the core team, or people, they're still there almost for that 11 years. But they're very passionate, dedicated people, very passionate about the African Music and Cultural Festival.
And they've been consistent for 11 whole years.
And they've been consistent.
You've never had a fallout. No one ever said, you know what, I'm not going to do this with you no more. We are done. I'm leaving this. Never did that.
Well, look, we've had two people in the board earlier on. And I think this would be 2 or 3 years in, especially when the Nigerian Society of Victoria issue started and so on in there. And again, this were individuals that maybe didn't know me as well and so on, or thought it was a bit too hard work. And yeah, they felt, okay, maybe I don't want to be part of this board anymore. Interestingly, 9 years later, both of them are wanting to come back on the board of African Music.
They've seen the success.
They've seen success.
And you guys
Yes,
have.
they've seen success.
And one of them has currently said, "Oh, that's my worst decision." Both of them wanted to.
But would you accept them back into your network?
I've said to them that, look, to come back to the board of the African Music and Cultural Festival, we have a process. You need to serve on the steering committee for a while and demonstrate your value and things that you do. Then from the steering committee, you move into the core team, because we have those core team people that help make things happen during the year. And then before you get to a board member. So they need to start with that, demonstrating as a steering committee member, participating and so on, because what you don't want is a board where that's the heartbeat of the organization, and where if you get a dysfunctional board, then that could impact the organization. But we do have robust conversations. It's a very challenging board. They would, they would challenge me and, put views and, on various things. And it's very collaborative, but it's also very collaborative. Board. We make decisions together. It's never Fred's decision, Fred says this or whatever and so on. Actually, most of the time I actually say that there are two strong personalities on the board, two women, strong women, Pony Tongun and the treasurer Florence and Amanda. And I'll say sometimes the three of them say something, I don't even bother arguing anymore and so on. So so it's a very collaborative, collegiate board, and I'm so grateful for them.
To have that quality of network for the past 11 years, that's a blessing.
And we have robust conversation.
Yes,
When I say robust, but respectful arguments, nothing like
very professional.
Very professional.
Yeah, that's what
you
it is.
see the views and so on, think from different angles. I mean, just one thing, somebody from a non-African background, exceptionally qualified person, has been on lots of boards, and actually a multimillionaire wants to come on that board.
Wow.
And I thought, put it to them to say, hey, this could be help with networking, etc. They're governance experts and so on, but they're of Indian background, and the conversation on the board was like, well, we love that and so on, but what does it say about us as a board that it might send the wrong signal around what we're trying to tell the narrative of African Australians, that we can't run an organization properly, and we need to then have somebody else, but optics doesn't look right in there. He said, but could you, for example, go and sit on a board of their own committee to say you're doing that?
Makes sense.
Would you find anybody there when you're talking, because we're also cultural, we're not just service delivery or everything.
The
sensitivity, African culture in there. So there was a challenge there. So I was like, I didn't say, but there was challenging, robust things in there that this is what I would want to do, and and I was okay, no problem in there. So just that's one of the types of challenges that we get: robust conversation, open and honest conversations that the board has with each other. So it's never really, this person come on board and so on. So when even those two that wants to come back, it's not my decision alone. Although I know they will very much listen to my opinions of if I say things. But we've always decided you come to the steering committee, you prove yourself there in the core team, and it will be at least you'll be spending about 3 years. So there's one person now that we want to bring back or bring on the board, not one of the two. But they've proved themselves over a number of times because we need stability in that. That's what we learn. That can control the organization, that can, damage or repair or progress the organization. So it's important to have a good set of people there.
Yeah.
Mr.
I-
Fred,
I've got-
okay, so
I've got two questions, like, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
right?
no problem.
Just listening to everything you said, like, I'm just trying to focus. Like, so the first thing I was going to ask is regarding somebody, let's say me now, I have no African background.
Yes.
And I come to the AMCF, I love it, I want to help.
Yeah.
Either, let's say I've got some organizational background,
Yeah.
experience. Like, the first question would be, how would you, obviously, like, I understand, like, not that it's racism or prejudice or anything like that, but it's just more of the optics, right?
Yeah.
Which Mr. Candy on the board.
Yeah.
The first question would be, what options or opportunities would be open to that person? Because I know there's some Indians that grew up in Africa, that were born in Kenya. Then the second question sort of ties into this, because listening to you talk, it's like you guys have an entire process of somebody doesn't just come to the board. You start, it's like you go to primary school first. From primary school you graduate to high school. From high school you graduate to university. From university you go to the board. Right? So based on that framework, and you're talking about value, are there any other groups or anything like that you are a part of, that you started after this, that you think, hey, because you're talking about value, changing the narrative, opportunities, and I find out, I would love to learn about that as well. So if you could just, I know it's a bit of a long question.
Cool.
But
No.
I just wanted to get that as well.
Excellent. Look, anybody, we've got, for example, on our steering committee, we've had many people from different background, Australian background on the steering committee. We welcome anybody that can add value, has passion for AMCF, and wants to contribute to the delivery of AMCF. That steering committee, that's what it's for. So we have a broader voice in there. We've got a member of my team. His name is actually Gary Lee. Gary Lee is like a pseudo board member. He's from Malaysia, I think is his background. But he's been there from year one and an excellent worker. We've got him as a volunteer manager in there. So he's part of our core team. And he's worth his weight in gold. And we work with him actively. He's part of the team, the AMCF team. When we have strategy sessions, he's involved. His feedback is on point because he gets involved in a lot of other community organizations. And so he knows, and we can share knowledge from those community organizations in there. So I'm just saying, he's not African, and he's contributing, and he's absolutely crucial. He manages all the volunteers for the African Music and Cultural Festival. So we do have other people that are non-Africans that take part. Our criteria is that you can add value, want to add value, believe in the objectives of the African Music and Cultural Festival, and want to help take that organization to that next level. So we welcome anybody. And if we do have an Indian of African background or an African of Indian background, as long as you're African, we can do that to the board. That's the key thing. One of the people that we say we're looking for that board position is South African of white origin. So it's not anything, but he's South African.
South African,
That is something. He's African.
Yeah.
And he's been on the steering committee and core team and proved himself, and we're looking to get him on the board there. So we don't have any issues with that too. And he's still, he's an African with all intents and purposes. So so for us, it's about what value you can deliver to the MCF board. In terms of other organizations, look, whilst I've not started any other organizations, I'm actively involved in other African community organizations. For example, I'm the treasurer of Africa Day Australia, and I've been that treasurer now of that organization for about 8 years. Again, I love that organization because come the month of May, we celebrate the creation of.
Oh, that's the one. There's what do you call that? There's what's this thing called? That is it
Gala dinner?
Gala dinner? Yeah.
Yes, African.
I heard about it. I heard about it last week Wednesday, because obviously I'm new to Victoria.
Yes,
I haven't been in Victoria for a long time. I'm Sydney, so I'm like, okay, there's a gala. Okay.
Yep. Okay. There's an African Day Gala dinner. I'm part of the organizing committee of that, subcommittee of that. So I play a crucial role in the gala dinner happening. There are other streams that it does. There's Families and Youth Forum. There's sports competition, and then there's Africa's Got Talent competition. I oversee, from a finance point of view, the budget of those areas, but not actively involved in those other subcommittees apart from the general governance of the organization and the gala dinner. that I'm actively involved. I'm actually one of the co-MCs at the gala dinner and bring the networks to make sure that gala dinner and organizations to get that, sell, buy tables, etc. And the premiers attended that gala dinner twice in the 8 years.
Wow.
So it's very highly regarded. So treasurer of Africa Day Gala Dinner, but again, Gala Dinner, I'm on the Victorian African Communities Committee. It's a Victorian government committee set up to address issues in the African communities through like issues of employment, youth, mental health, many other things, and backed by government. So I sit on that committee. I'm also on the federal government or Commonwealth Government Music Australia Council as a member of that council. I was appointed there by Minister Tony Burke to that council. Wow. I am on the board of the National Theatre in St Kilda, and I also chair the Audit and Risk Committee of the National Theatre. Oh yes, two more things. I'm the treasurer of the Tears Baton Unit Support Unit Support Committee, which is it's a cadets, Navy cadets outfit. So the parents and the support for the cadets. I'm the treasurer there. And finally, in my suburb of Waterways near Mordialloc, I'm the chair of the Waterways Residents Association.
Wow. So you are just active in the community. Mr. Fred, you're an accountant. Like you're an accountant. You're an accountant. Everything you do, most of the day, you got a thing for arts. I noticed that. Your theater, you got something. I know you're more community oriented, but you love art. Where did that come from? Where did that art come from?
Look, I think it's the African Music and Culture Festival that started that.
Okay.
And it's just creating that space for a lot of artists to perform, showcase their talent on a big stage, and provide that opportunity and development opportunity. And I think that's where it's really started and I've built on really since then. It's that. And where do I find the time to do all those things?
Yes.
Well, somebody said, if you want to get things done, give it to a busy person. I do work late sometimes. Many people.
So when you say late, how late is late? Some people 10 is late.
10 is late.
I don't think 10 is late for me. Because everybody works till 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. every
2
day.
a.m. is early, so it all depends. It's relative.
Well, yes, it depends on certain things. Sometimes I'm working till about 1, 2 a.m. But usually that's like when it's a weekend and I know I don't have work the next day. But I do a lot of work in the evening. So when a lot of people come back from work, they chill out, watch Netflix and so on. I'm like, okay, get on my computer and strategizing for one organization, writing to donors or sponsors, etc. For example, I know when I get home tonight, I still need to send some invites out.
Oh my God. I get friends' emails like regularly.
I need to send invites out to certain people to invite them to official proceedings. I need to chase the invite to the premier to say, hey, send me or confirm that you're going to be there, and chase some letters of support from various people. So I'll do that tonight and so on. And so I do it outside work.
When do you have time to participate in all these organizations? Most importantly, have time for yourself.
And family.
Yes.
For your family.
And a wife as well.
You have time for yourself,
Self-care is important.
Look, self-care. Look, there are times when I just maybe binge watch some Netflix series from time to time, and I'm like, okay, there. But look, I think the thing is, when I do work in community and I actually make it happen, it's so good for me. That's almost for me. That's where I get my recharge from. On African Music and Culture Festival, on the day when we set up, even before the event starts, and we put the banner up and it's start to go, and it's like, wow, we're in this space in Fed Square. we take it over here. It's going to be packed. It's such a great feeling. And with the team too, it's just such a great feeling that we created this space and we're going to do this. I might not eat for the whole day, and then I'm like running on adrenaline throughout that whole day, and I don't feel tired or something just because of that. But look, I think it's just I relish and I get. For me, it's not a chore. It's like, okay, I've got to get this done.
Yeah.
And look, maybe also the fact that I was trained with a Big Four, trained to work quickly, being able to deal with multiple things at the same time, do it to high quality. That's helped out really. And then sometimes when I guess I get to take holidays, like we're going on holiday, family holiday for about 10 days.
Are you going overseas or within
No, we're going to Nusa for the first time.
Nusa?
It's in Queensland.
Queensland, yeah. Nusa.
I've never heard of it.
No, I think is that near?
You're putting places on the map.
Nusa. I've heard that name, but I always thought Nusa was like in Vanuatu or like Fiji or something.
It's in Queensland, and it's a beautiful part of Queensland actually, in Nusa, and lots of lovely beaches there, and
but you won't take your laptop with you. You're not going to open anything about African music and cultural festival. That's not going to happen. You're just going to spend time with your wife and kids, or are we going to be worried that Mr. Fred is still saying, Mario Obo, would you look at this photo?
No, knowing you, your wife's probably gonna be there working with you guys. You're there physically, but mentally, because like considering all the amount of work you do, Fred, and your wife supports you. Man. That's how I kind of feel.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
I'll probably go with my laptop, but I'm aiming to just relax, chill out, because I've taken the time off work, and AMCF would have been done by that time, so there's no things going on. I'm not chasing anybody at that time anymore. So it should be relatively quiet, really. And we wouldn't have kicked off planning for Africa Day in May by that time. So I don't think I'll need to send any emails or anything.
You don't think.
Don't think, but you may say, let me talk to my treasurer just quickly.
It could be, because I know there's a grant that should be open at federal level. If Tony's applying for that, I'll be reviewing that with her. So there we go.
Yeah, I'm not going to be sending, because even for me, when I graduated from uni, at nights I'll just be chilling. I'm like, oh my God, I got this paper due. Yes. And I'll run to my, I graduated from uni 2 years ago. That's what I'll be sitting down. I'm going on 2 years of this graduation. But sometimes like your mind is just so stuck in that it's become a part of you.
Yeah.
Mr. Fred, let me ask you. We're gonna round up very soon, but I know that thank you for coming. It's
No
a great
problem.
honor to have you here. But what is the next big thing we need to know about Mr. Fred? What's cooking? What's cooking? What's on fire right now that the whole world doesn't know? What's cooking for you?
Look, for me, I'm just gonna continue. For me, in a professional setting, I'll hope to continue progressing in my profession. From a community point of view, I want to continue to make African music and culture bigger and better. My vision for the African Music and Cultural Festival is to be a festival attended by over 1 million people. Where we shut down the middle of Fed Square, middle of the city, the CBD, because everybody's there attending the African
Hotels
Festival.
are making profit.
Airbnbs
are making money.
And so everybody's, because everybody's going there. Qantas and Virgin are setting their new schedules, putting on more flights because everybody's flying to the African Music and Cultural Festival. But then it's also to make the organization more sustainable, because right now there's still a lot of dependency on me. I'm a critical risk to the African Music and Cultural Festival. And they need to de-risk me.
So you want to be more leaders.
Talk like a consultant.
I need to, they need to see how can we make their, if the proverbial, Fred's not there now and so on, how can we continue this organization?
In that regard, is there anyone that you're mentoring right now to take that position, just in case
I've
back
got
off
good people there on the board that can continue the organization. It's also about creating like more defined revenue streams. For example, the state government funding that we receive now, that's amazing. I'd like to keep that going.
Yeah.
So continue to build on that network, even when this finishes, for them to renew it, that they know what we do. I'd like to secure similar funding like that at the Commonwealth level.
Yeah. Wow.
I'd like the City of Melbourne, because we've got support from the federal. Through the Prime Minister's letters. But we need that financial support to back that up. We need that letter of support to translate into a financial support commitment, like the state government. We've also got commitment from the City of Melbourne. And they're supporting like 50k over 2 years now, and that it was first time, always every year before we had to apply, and I'm like, you're making us do this every time, you know us, we deliver this. I remember going to a meeting with them to tell them that, hey, it's not fair you are making us apply for grants every year, because you know what we do. It should be a long-term thing. We should be out of your grant process, actually, and they said, oh, but that's always what we do for Greek and so on communities. And I was like, you just mentioned Greek community. Do you know that's one country in Europe? We're the African Music and Cultural Festival.
The whole continent.
We're representing the whole continent. We've got over 35 African communities. By that statement you made, it should be whatever you give to the Greek times 35 should be what you've been looking at.
Exactly.
And I could see their eyes wide open there.
Because you made a great articulated statement.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
It was like a bullseye. It was like the eyes widened there. And that's why I was like, okay. And that was translated into this 2-year funding of 50,000 every year. But I still want them to do more. I want them to increase that, match the state government, because what we bring to the City of Melbourne in terms of investment, we have people that come all the way from Perth, from Adelaide, from different places. We've got a 2 food trucks coming from Sydney to come to our festival this time.
Yeah, I've got a question just on that, right? So have you guys ever sat down and looked at the financial benefits of the AMCF? Because flights, food, petrol, hotels, a whole bunch of stuff. There should be a lot of economic. Well, I'm not assuming, but I'm guessing.
But definitely, if there should be a lot of economic benefits. Since it's a festival, that's going to be a whole lot.
Absolutely. Look, we've done some high-level estimates before. We've not really captured some of those numbers, but this time we've had people come. Patrons or attendees that says, hey, I'm coming up from New South Wales, etc. We've got videos of them, evidence that this are coming, and they come with the whole family, and 5 of them from New South Wales, and so there are many other people. We've got a face painter that comes here, and she comes from Queensland, flies there every year. She comes there and is one of our face painters. And for the first time this year, too, we've got 2 participants that one's a food truck provider from Sydney, driving all the way from Sydney to come and participate in our festival.
Wow.
All the way from Sydney.
Wow.
2 of them. Wow. Food vendors coming from Sydney. Last year we had a stallholder selling art and craft and homewares all the way from Perth. And they had such a good time from Perth. Wow. They sold out all their art and craft. They also took orders to be delivered to people.
Mr. Fred, thank you so much for coming to the Cornerstone podcast. We are so proud to have you. Thank you for the wisdom you shared. Our girl, Eno, do you have any question for him before we round up?
I asked the question the other time about advice, which I could have asked like right now, and you answered it. So right now, I don't have any question. I'm just so glad that I've heard from you and I've learned a lot. I mean, you've motivated me on that, especially in my pursuit for women's rights, domestic violence. And yes, I've been motivated and I'm beginning to think, and I'm ready to take steps to go further.
Fantastic. Especially the opportunities bit. Do you know about women? So my wife, I'll share one other example of the opportunities, taking opportunities. She had an opportunity to go for her manager's position who had resigned, and she kept doubting herself. And like, no, I can't do it, etc. And I'm looking, it's like, what is there? There's nothing in there that you can't do. You've got this experience. You work for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, work for G4 Securico, global companies, etc. You've got all this experience in there over years. And that, go on. She still doubted herself. It took me pushing her, and even her daughter, my daughters, also saying to Mom, go for this. I'm saying, what an example you're setting. Women, I find sometimes, it might be generalizing, but sometimes they'll see a job spec, they can do 90% of it, they'll be worried about the 10 that they can't do. Exactly. Men will see a job spec, they can do 35%, I'm like, yep, I can do that job, that job is mine. And so there is something there about also women taking opportunities and not doubting themselves or going after to push themselves to reach the potential. And I'm glad Claire did that. She finally went for it, and she did very well in the interview. And so
is very passionate about women's rights and domestic violence and all that. It just, I don't know, she's just vibes, it just lights her up whenever that discussion comes up.
It's very important. I'm a father of 3 girls, so I'm also very passionate about women's rights. I'm passionate about any space that creates opportunities for women, that empowers women, and because I want to be that example to my children, and I want to help create a better world for them where my ceiling, wherever I get to, should be their floor.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, Mr. Fred Alade, thank you so much for coming to the Cornerstone podcast. It's a great honor to have you. It has been a very beautiful evening. Thank you so much for the support and the love. We wish you the best, and we are going to be coming straight to the African Music and Cultural Festival. We'll be there. That's November 15th to the 17th. We will be there live to support you and to put the word out there. So thank you so much for coming.
See you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great.